and welcome to today's video. Today we are here and it's another episode of the Racing Debrief. And today we got some racing to talk about, both Formula One and NASCAR. So, let's start with the least interesting of the two. We'll start with Formula One. Sprint race, pretty straightforward. Max Verstappen winning that on Saturday. Nothing really else to say about it, to be honest. Pretty much doing his thing. Again, you had a little bit of contact throughout the field. Lewis Hamilton into Fernando Alonso, into Lance Stroll, into Lando Norris. So you had that. And, I felt like the sprint overall was kind of whatever. I think F1 adding sprints, the more they've been around, the less interesting they've been. I think that, we started with some sprints. It was interesting. I think we had 3 in 21 and 22. In those years, it was good, right? Sprint, you have a few, add a little bit of excitement here or there. I think when you do 6, it adds a bit too much. And you're also doing a bit too much when you start adding in multiple qualifying sessions. I just think it's a bit much, right? 2 qualifying sessions and a sprint and a race. Like, you're trying to do too much. So I'm not really the biggest fan of that. Incidents throughout the field, again, those are the big ones. You have Fernando Alonso after saying Lewis Hamilton wouldn't get a penalty because he's not Spanish, which I thought was funny because that's kind of a thing a lot of people say online. The bias towards the British drivers in Formula One is very apparent. So I think him acknowledging that is quite interesting. I think it's saying what a lot of people notice online. And what I think is quite apparent. So, and was very apparent on Sunday. So, Sunday we seen, pretty crazy race start. Max taking the lead. Checo pretty much almost took out Max, managed to go through that, taking him out, and then the race, calmed down again. Throughout the field, you had a little bit of, pushing people wide. But again, F1 for me has kind of gotten whatever. I think that you don't really see much happen in an F1 race. I think when people try to pin it on a dominant driver, I don't think that is really the case. I think that throughout pretty much the time I've watched F1 since 2019, there's been a few races that really stand out as those were wild, but a lot of the time has been, not the most entertaining. So I think that's something that has to be discussed, right? Whether it's Lewis or Max now that has dominated, I don't think it's on those drivers for making it boring or those teams. Sure, you may get the same winner a lot, but I think the sport in general lacks excitement throughout the field, right? You have so many specific things. You can't do this, you can't do that. I think it really kind of takes away from what you may get in excitement and in exciting racing, like you may see in something like NASCAR, which tends to be pretty exciting, or there's at least some sort of drama throughout the field and something happening almost every single weekend. You can't say every single NASCAR race is good, but there's damn sure a lot more a year than F1. I mean, F1 this season, how many have been exciting? 0. NASCAR, how many have been exciting? More than half of them, at least. So, I think that's one thing. I think with F1, you've seen today really showed that. And that's what I want to discuss, right? So you had a safety car, one of the Haas guys, I think it was Magnussen, into Logan Sargent, brought out a safety car. Everybody pit besides Lando Norris, who was out towards the front. Now, I will say the McLarens were quick, right? I mean, Lando was the quickest in sprint qualifying, in round 1 and 2 of it. So, I will say that, right? But I think overall, whoever's in the front has a really good chance of just pulling away. And that's what we've seen, right? The race restart, Lando came out of the pits, pitting, only guy that kind of benefited from the safety car. And he pulled up and just drove away, right? And I think that the reaction online and the reaction from the commentary, who again, the commentary is British, so they're going to be super hyped that Lando won compared to Max winning. Same when George Russell when he won, Lewis Hamilton when he was winning. I mean, the British commentary, they go wild. I mean, you got, you know, whatever, right? I think that's obvious. But, I mean, the way they reacted to Lando winning, I mean, they're interviewing Zach Brown, uh, Andreas Seidel. Like, they're out here with Ted in the pit. So, I mean, he's hardcore British stan. I mean, absolutely hates Max with a passion. But either way, he's out there just going wild in the pits interviewing. Like, literally what they do when they, win championships, right? They're out here interviewing all the people from the team. So, I thought that was funny. But the thing that I really found funny was the reaction online to Lando Norris winning. And I know I made some posts about it and, things like that, where the race wasn't more or less exciting because Lando Norris won, right? I think that's the thing. People make it seem like you take Max out and the race is going to be super exciting. Throughout the whole field, there's 2 or 3 second gaps between everybody. I think that that's a bit unfortunate to see, right? If you want to say it's exciting and it's the pinnacle of racing or whatever, and everybody's got 3 second gaps and somebody wins by 7 seconds every week, right? I think you're in the wrong spot marketing your sport. But also, I think for the fans and everybody online to be like, oh, Lando won by 7 seconds. This is the greatest day ever. Best race. When Max wins by 7 seconds every week and it's a meltdown, right? I think that's interesting, right? I mean, obviously it's somebody else winning, so I get that aspect of, it's not Max winning, so it's whatever. But I don't know. I think it's funny to see the difference in reaction depending on who it is, right? The racing wasn't better because Max wasn't leading. It wasn't like, and I think it's the same thing you seen weeks ago in Australia when Max had a DNF. That race was terrible, super boring. You take Max out of it, and it was still shit. Right? People are like, oh, you take Max out, it's gonna be great. You take Max out, and Carlos Sainz won by 5 seconds over Leclerc, who was 5 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton or whoever. I think it was Hamilton in third. So, you look at Miami, Max is second, 7 seconds behind Lando. Max is 3 seconds ahead of Leclerc, who's 3 or 4 seconds ahead of Sainz, who's 3 or 4 seconds ahead of Perez. Shit's boring. It's not exciting. I don't know what to say. I think that for me, the more I've watched F1, the less engaged I feel like I can be with it. Right? I think that it's something that it's not super exciting, right? And I feel like I don't want to sit here and say I watch it solely because Max is racing, right? I don't want to sit here and say that. I don't want to be that person that I only watch it because of one person. But I can't think of a reason why if Max were to retire tomorrow, I would watch the next F1 race, right? I mean, obviously, like, I like Red Bull as a team. I like Red Bull as a brand. But I don't know if I would just sit here and say, I have to watch every F1 race because Max isn't in it, right? Where I can watch NASCAR without having to have a favorite driver that's in the races, right? Xfinity race, I don't really have one driver that I'm like, this is my driver, I have to see them do well every week, right? I like Haley Deegan, I like Shane Van Gisbergen, but I'm not like sitting here saying hardcore biggest fan, right? And even with, Cup Series, right? All the years I liked Kevin Harvick, if he wasn't in the front, especially the last few years, when he didn't necessarily have, as good seasons, 21, 22, 23, like he wasn't killing it, but I still watch the races every week. And, this year, not every race Ty Gibbs has been top 5, right? but it's still interesting to me. I don't think F1 has the same impact. Uh, I can't explain why. I don't know if it's just because I've always grown up watching NASCAR, being a fan, and F1's something I've gotten into in the last 5 or 6 years. But I just feel like F1 purely as a sport doesn't do it for me. I don't know if it's some of the extra things that happen that I think are super lame that I'm not a fan of. Right? I don't know if it's just the way that I think it's run in this aspect of we're better than everybody. I feel like that's the way that it's marketed. Um, I don't know if it's the way that they, go about trying to get or trying to deny an American team joining when they're trying to get American money. I don't know if that factors into it. I don't know if the extreme British bias factors into it. I don't know if it's the insane drama and the insane obsession with, again, certain teams and certain drivers, right? This insane obsession with one specific team, like we see with Ferrari. I mean, Adrian Newey's leaving Red Bull, right? We didn't even talk about that this week, which, um, obviously it's a disappointment to see him leave, but I mean, he's been amazing at Red Bull. He's the best car designer ever. I still got his book over here. I got it like last year for Christmas. Still got to read it. Like I'm Adrian Newey's super super cool, super awesome, right? And he's done so many awesome things with Red Bull, winning the constructors championships they won, 2010 to 2013, 2022 and 2023, drivers championships with Sebastian Vettel, 4 of them, 2010, 2013, 3 championships with Max Verstappen. Not also including the things that Adrian Newey did with Williams, the championships there, and the championships with McLaren. I believe he's got 13 constructors and 12 drivers championships. May have those numbers lower than maybe one lower than I think what he has. But either way, in that range, right? But here we are talking about other things that are just with the sport. But I think that also the insane obsession with Adrian Newey is going to go to Ferrari, right? Because this obsession with Ferrari. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand the history and the importance of Ferrari in Formula One. But when you have Eddie Jordan, who's, I guess, Adrian Newey's agent, saying, nah, he's going to chill. Adrian Newey, like, nah, I'm going to go on vacation. And if you read Adrian Newey's statements, or his statement when he said he's retiring, it definitely seemed like he's retiring. And not, I'm leaving Red Bull to go join another team, right? But I think that this narrative gets pushed, and all I've seen all week is every single media outlet saying he's going to Ferrari, trying to push this on social media. And I think those things are lame when I would be surprised if he's at Ferrari next season. All right, I would be surprised if he's designing a car in Formula One. I think that he's going to chill. I think he's good. I think he's done. He's done it for a long time. I think that's where he's at. Again, if you've done something since the 80s and you can chill, why not? All right, you got that status, you got that, that legendary status in the sport. You have that money, go chill, right? If you want to. And I think that seems like that's the thing he wants to do. I also think that I believe he's like 65. Do you really want to move countries from where you've lived forever to a brand new country with a completely different language? I don't think that's something I'd want to do, right? I don't think that's something that is maybe the most appealing thing to say, oh, I've lived in Britain for 65 years. I'm going to go live in Italy now and learn Italian because they're obsessed with everybody knowing Italian and speaking Italian. At Ferrari, I don't know if that appeals to somebody that age, right? You can go on vacation instead and just chill and relax and show up in an F1 track if you want to. So I think that all that stuff factors into, is Formula One something that I want to watch long term? And I've thought about it. Okay, if Max is done, am I done watching it? right? Do I care? Am I going to watch every week at least? Am I going to tune in every single weekend? I don't know, right? NASCAR, I haven't missed a race since uh, Auto Club in 2020, right? I was working that day. Only race that I can remember missing in the last 4 years. F1, granted, I've only missed one since 2019, but and I think probably NASCAR even goes back to that same, like, since 2019. I probably only missed Auto Club 2020 because I've pretty much made sure I haven't worked on Sundays. I mean, I literally don't work on Sundays to watch racing. So, would I miss F1? I don't know. I just think it's one of those things that it's not exciting in any way. And when you see such bias and dislike towards your team and your driver, I don't know if it's something I want to continue watching after, you know, Max were to retire. So, or even if he went to another team, I don't know if how I'd feel about it. Right, all this Max going to Mercedes stuff they're also pushing. I don't see it. Either way, I'm done talking about F1. I'm over it. We're 16 minutes into this video. Let's get into the real excitement, which is NASCAR, Kansas. So as we've seen in NASCAR since the next gen car came out, Kansas has been absolutely amazing. Kansas went from being one of the worst tracks, the worst. I mean, that 2020 race with Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick, so trash. Kansas was absolutely horrible. To see this switch and, see how these cars perform is just amazing, right? And I think we sit here week after week. I mean, last week has literally changed the next gen car. And I think this is the issue, right? Because you sit here and you just see how terrible the next gen car can be on short tracks and road courses, right? Again, last week we were sitting here saying change the next gen car. And we're saying that after Martinsville. We're saying it after Richmond. We're probably going to say it after North Wilkesboro in 2 weeks. All right? You see a road course. It's like, come on. So it's interesting to see how much NASCAR has flipped from what it was in 2021 to 2022 to now, right? We went from mile and a half, please go away, to this week's race winner saying we need more mile and a halves. It's very interesting because the way these cars race at mile and a half is brilliant. I mean, everybody is passing. We're seeing moves. Maybe we had 5 wide for second place at one point in, I believe it was the beginning of stage 2. I mean, stage 1, you've seen Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson back and forth for lap after lap after lap. It was absolutely amazing to see. And I feel like this race also just amplifies the disappointment in watching Formula One because Kansas got rain delayed. So my initial plan was going into it saying, okay, we're going to watch NASCAR. It starts at 3, F1 starts at 4. We're just going to watch NASCAR. That's done. Go to Formula One. It ended up being the opposite because Formula One ended right basically when NASCAR was starting, so it worked out. So I think to go from watching Formula One where it's, 7-second gap between first and second, again, 3-second gap, 4-second gap down the whole field. I mean, you had 6th place was close, first, second. But I mean, throughout the field, it's just so spread out. I think is difficult to be like, I'm into it. And then, you jump into your next race that you're watching and it's, again, back and forth for the lead multiple times. And throughout the whole field, everybody's passing each other. I think it's wild because, again, 5 wide for second place at the beginning of stage 2. Absolutely insane, right? So, again, both stages went caution free, but you had a lot of passing, a lot of moving through the field. We go into stage 3. This is when crashing and cautions begin. Austin Cindric has a crash. That gets Michael McDowell and Bubba Wallace involved. You have Jimmy Johnson getting crashed by Corey LaJoie in the back of him. Jimmy Johnson slowed up. There was something happened in front of him that got him to slow up. There you could see the smoke through the onboard camera. Whatever, maybe somebody hit into each other at the front or further up in the field. Jimmy Johnson backed out. Corey LaJoie sent him spinning, so he crashed. So you had that. You had a few other solo crashes, solo spins. You had Harrison Burton solo spin, Joe Logano solo spin. So you had all that. And then we go into this long run of who didn't pit. So, get on your stage winners. Denny Hamlin, who won stage one and had some issues coming out of his pit box. You had Chris Buescher, who won stage two and had some issues where he got a penalty. His team was too early over the wall. So you had that. So they were both towards the back or further back due to that, but they had fast cars. So the second to last caution, or no, the last caution before the long run, they pit. So that put him in a spot where they could make it on fuel. I think there was another caution, so they were able to make it. They came in pit, another quick caution. I think that was the Harrison Burton spin, and then you had the Joe Logano spin. So everybody else pit. This puts Hamlin and Buescher towards the front, so they're doing their thing. They take off, and then have to go into fuel saving mode. So we're getting a little bit of fuel strategy in here, not something we really typically see because of the stages. So you get a fuel strategy race towards the end. You have both drivers are trying to save 80% throttle through the corner, limit your braking, limit the acceleration, all that. They're really trying to manage. Everybody else at the pit is 6-7 laps better on fuel than them. So Buescher falls back a little bit. It looks like Truex is going to start chasing down Hamlin. 5 or 6 to go. Then you have a Kyle Busch spin. Resets everything. This sends us into overtime. And again, we've seen so many awesome things throughout this race, right? We've seen, again, 5 wide battling, Larson and Chastain back and forth. You had Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher going at it for a little bit. Again, the fuel strategy's coming into it. Late race caution, everything. So most drivers come up, or every driver comes on pit road. Most of them take 2 tires, fuel. You get the late restart. Denny Hamlin picks the inside. Chris Buescher on the high side. Now, personally, I thought, all right, Chris Buescher's getting this win, right? Denny Hamlin's car is taking 3 or 4 laps, maybe even 5 to 10 to really get going. So, okay, Chris Buescher's probably going to win this, but Kyle Larson was full send on the inside. Gets by Hamlin. You also have Chase Elliott, and you have Martin Truex. They're both towards the front as well. So it was, right up there, a lot of players towards the front. But again, Larson sends on the inside, gets next to Hamlin. Buescher's towards the lead. He's doing a little bit of blocking on Larson, as you expect. Go on to the last lap. Larson's right there. Makes the move into 3, depending, where he goes. It's going to dictate a lot of things. He goes all the way to the high side. Him and Buescher, I thought they were going to crash. Buescher moves up towards the top of the track. Again, getting close to the wall. I'm like, oh, they're going to crash. You're going to have Truex or Elliott win this. They managed to hold it together. Hit once, hit twice, go to the line. Now, I was sitting there, I was like, oh, Larson, I was like, I think Larson won. They're saying on the broadcast Buescher won. I'm like, all right, maybe Buescher did win it. His whole team celebrating. I was like, for somehow I looked at it, I was just like, nah, he got that. Somehow in these 2 photo finish, I was able to say who got it right away. But we had Atlanta, so I was sitting there. I was like, oh, Larson got it, I think. But I said the whole time, I'm like, all right, Buescher got it, cool, good for him. He's gonna make the playoffs. But they're all celebrating. Then they cut to Cliff Daniels on the pit box for Kyle Larson, and it's like, oh, maybe Larson did win it, and then Kyle Larson wins, closest finish ever, .001. Insane. Closest NASCAR finish of all time. That's insane. 76 years now we're on. Closest finish. Wow. What a race. What a finish. Kansas has been absolutely amazing. We've had 5 awesome Kansas races. So, it's been really, really good. Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson, 2022. Bubba Wallace, also in 2022. Last year, you had Hamlin on Larson towards the finish. Tyler Reddick last year in a crazy finish in the playoffs. And then, of course, now Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher in the closest finish ever. Another thing that's crazy about that close finish is Truex and Elliott were right there. I mean, it wasn't like there was a big gap. So top four, very very close. But photo finish, second one in the Cup Series this year. Third overall. I mean, with Xfinity Series with Sam Mayer and Ryan Sieg. So three NASCAR photo finishes in the top series, two in the Cup Series. I mean, insane finish. I'm so excited to see more NASCAR racing. I was looking forward to it all day. So I'm I'm loving it at these bigger tracks, and we'll see what we get at Darlington. Darlington's put on some decent racing the last few years, so I'm excited for that. Of course, we got Throwback Weekend. There's some cool throwback paint schemes out there that have came out already. Of course, we got the Kyle Larson scheme. I mean, all the Hendrick schemes have been really good. So Kyle Larson with the Terry Labonte throwback. We got Chase Elliott with the Dale Jr. throwback. Alex Bowman with the Jimmy Johnson throwback. William Byron with the Jeff Gordon throwback. Those are just the Hendrick cars. I mean, Tyler Reddick's got a good throwback. Like, there's a lot of good ones out there besides Christopher Bell's. Most of the throwbacks are really, really cool. So I'm excited for next week, and of course throughout this week, as we're gonna see what schemes get announced. So next Sunday we're back for Darlington. We'll see you guys then.